Clint Eastwood's life now, the truth about his final chapter. Clint Eastwood, the legendary actor and director, didn't just rise to fame. He fought his way through a life filled with hardship to become one of Hollywood's most enduring icons. Behind the steely gaze and commanding presence was a man shaped by struggle. His childhood was uprooted by constant moves. His early career was riddled with uncertainty, and he battled anxiety that few ever saw. He survived a near-fatal plane crash and endured the devastating loss of his father. Yet through every challenge, he built a career that would define an era of cinema. How did these trials shape the legend he became? Stay tuned to uncover the untold story. Please like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss any new videos. On May 31, 1930, Clint Eastwood made his grand entrance into the world at St. Francis Hospital in San Francisco, so big at birth that nurses nicknamed him Samson. Weighing in at a hefty 11 pounds, he was already making an impression. Born to Clinton Sr. and Ruth Runner, Clint came from a rich tapestry of ancestry, with English, Scottish, Dutch, German, and Irish roots, even tracing back to a passenger on the Mayflower. A few years later, his family grew when his younger sister, Jean Bernhardt, was born. Little did anyone know that oversized baby would grow up to become one of Hollywood's most legendary figures. Leave a star emoji if you think Clint deserves an even bigger career. Throughout the 1930s, Clint Eastwood's father struggled to keep a steady job, bouncing between sales and even a brief stint as a detective in San Francisco. The family moved constantly, but by 1940 they landed in affluent Piedmont, California, far from the hardship Clint sometimes recalls. The Eastwoods lived well, complete with a swimming pool, a country club membership, and all the comforts of an upper-middle-class lifestyle. School, however, was a different story. Clint's grades were poor, and he was held back at Piedmont Junior High, forced to make up for lost time with summer classes. By the time he hit Piedmont High, his rebellious streak was in full force. He was expelled after a series of pranks, including an obscene message scrawled across the scoreboard and a flaming effigy on the school lawn. Oakland Technical High gave him a second chance, and while some teachers saw potential and encouraged him to join school plays, Clint had zero interest in acting. His real passions? Fast cars, girls, and solo hobbies like tennis and golf. He dabbled in basketball, but preferred working on engines, learning aircraft maintenance, and spending hours at the piano, so much that his fingers bled from practice. As for graduation, that remains a mystery. Some say he dropped out, more interested in chasing thrills than finishing school. By early 1949, his father had moved to Seattle, and Clint crashed with a friend, Harry Pendleton, in Oakland. Then came a lucky break, an invite to a Malibu party where he crossed paths with legendary director Howard Hawks, an encounter that would change everything. But before Hollywood, there was hard labor. Clint took on gritty jobs, logging in Oregon, working as a lifeguard after earning his Red Cross certification, and even playing ragtime piano in an Oakland bar. His start was anything but conventional. Was it raw talent, pure luck, or something bigger guiding his path? Stick around, his story is just getting started. The Korean War came calling for Clint Eastwood in 1951, drafting him into the army. But instead of heading into battle, he found himself stationed at Fort Ord, California, working as a swimming instructor, a seemingly cushy gig. That is, until fate threw him into a real-life survival test. On September 30th, 1951, Clint hitched a ride back to base from Seattle on a Navy plane. From the start, things felt off. The weather turned ugly. Then, mid-flight, the plane's back door suddenly blew open. Clint managed to rig a quick fix, but then the radios and oxygen system failed. And just when things couldn't get worse, fuel ran out. With no other option, the pilot was forced to ditch the aircraft into the frigid Pacific Ocean, somewhere miles off the California coast. Sharks lurked beneath the surface, but survival came first. Clint and the pilot inflated life rafts, desperately paddling toward shore. The ocean fought back. Clint's raft flipped, leaving him no choice but to swim. The distance? Anywhere from 2 to 4 miles, depending on the version of the story. It was grueling. Pitch black water, exhaustion setting in, his mind slipping into hallucinations. But that swimming instructor job, it may have saved his life. Somehow Clint made it. He stumbled onto shore, cold, drained, and in shock, eventually finding his way to an RCA radio station. Against all odds, the pilot survived too. Years later, Clint would take on the role of Frank Morris in Escape from Alcatraz, portraying a man breaking free from the infamous island prison, swimming across the freezing San Francisco Bay to freedom. Art imitating life? Maybe. But one thing's for sure, Clint Eastwood was no stranger to escaping the impossible. But hey, military life wasn't all drills and discipline. To stretch his measly $67 a month paycheck, Clint picked up a side hustle at a sugar company, because even future legends have to make ends meet. Then there was the rumored romance with an officer's daughter. Good connections never hurt, even back then. One trip to Carmel planted a seed in his mind. Standing by the ocean, he thought, someday, I'd like to live here. It was a passing thought at the time, but fate had a way of circling back. Meanwhile, his time in the army introduced him to some interesting company, guys like Richard Long and Martin Milner, who would go on to become TV stars. Little did they know, the quiet, towering Eastwood would one day eclipse them all. The 1970s and early 80s saw Clint Eastwood swap his cowboy hat for a badge, trading the Wild West for the gritty streets of San Francisco. This was the era of Dirty Harry, the no-nonsense cop who didn't just enforce the law, he bent it to get the job done. The theme of a rogue with a badge continued in Thunderbolt and Lightfoot and The Gauntlet, where morality and legality clashed in high-stakes action. But Clint wasn't just about tough guys with guns, he showed his comedic chops in the every which way, but loose films, where his unlikely co-star, an orangutan named Clyde, stole scenes as his mischievous sidekick. The decade closed with Escape from Alcatraz, a chilling prison break thriller that proved Clint could embody more than just heroes. He could make audiences root for a desperate convict too. But not all of his projects ended on a high note. In 1975, while filming the high-altitude thriller The Eiger Sanction, tragedy struck. The production needed more footage of a dangerous climbing sequence, so experienced mountaineer David Knowles, working as a stunt double, teamed up with fellow climber Mike Hoover for the job. They got the shots, but at a terrible cost. Out of nowhere, a rock slide sent a massive boulder crashing toward them as they stood on a ledge. Hoover was badly injured, but Knowles didn't make it. The eerie part? The accident mirrored a stage scene they had filmed just days earlier. One of the climbers later recalled the horrifying moment. We flew up to that same location, and there was the scene we had been faking for 2 days, Dave Knowles hanging dead on the end of the rope. It was unbelievable. Fantasy and reality came head-on. The news devastated Eastwood. Racked with guilt, he nearly shut down the film entirely, feeling responsible for the tragedy. But his crew, knowing the risks of their craft, convinced him to press on, believing the best way to honor Knowles was to finish what they had started. If you still watch his films today, comment "timeless" below. The 1980s and early 90s marked a turning point for Clint Eastwood. His characters weren't just tough, they were haunted. In Firefox, he played a battle-scarred pilot tormented by PTSD, while Tightrope cast him as a detective so obsessed with the killer he hunted that the lines between good and evil blurred. The theme of inner demons followed him into The Rookie, where his reckless pursuit of justice put lives in danger, and White Hunter Blackheart, where he transformed into a driven film director, consumed by an obsession with hunting an elephant. But the defining moment of this era came with Unforgiven. Clint returned to the Western, but this wasn't the fearless gunslinger of his past. Instead, he played a broken ex-outlaw struggling to escape the violence that once defined him. The film didn't just redefine his career, it redefined the entire Western genre. Then came the 2000s and the rise of Grumpy Clint. In Space Cowboys, he was an aging astronaut finally getting his long-overdue shot at space. In Bloodwork, he played a retired profiler, physically weakened but still determined to outwit a killer. But Eastwood reached peak curmudgeon status with $1 Million Baby, where he played a hardened boxing trainer with a reluctant heart, and Gran Torino, as a bitter, racist veteran who finds redemption in an unlikely friendship. His most recent film, Cry Macho, continues the theme, an old worn-down cowboy on one last journey through rural Mexico. After decades of playing heroes and anti-heroes, Eastwood's later roles show a different kind of strength, the resilience of a man facing the weight of time, regret, and redemption. Clint Eastwood's personal life has been as complex and unpredictable as the characters he's played on screen. Although his first marriage to Maggie Johnson in 1953 seemed like a step toward stability, settling down was never going to be simple for a man like Eastwood. Initially hesitant about marriage, he eventually took the plunge, only to find domestic life clashing with his restless nature. Affairs soon became a recurring pattern, leading to consequences that would surface years later. His first known extramarital child, Lori Murray, was born from a secret affair and placed for adoption without his knowledge. Another relationship led to the birth of Kimber Lynn. Despite Maggie's awareness of his infidelities, she chose to stay, and the couple went on to have 2 children of their own, Kyle and Allison. But the cracks in their marriage continued to grow. By the late 70s, rumors swirled about Eastwood's deepening relationship with co-star Sondra Locke. What started as whispers became impossible to ignore, and by 1979 his marriage to Maggie had finally reached its breaking point. Their separation marked the end of an era in his personal life, but Eastwood's romantic entanglements were far from over. Clint Eastwood's love life was messy, a saga filled with hidden children, passionate affairs, and explosive breakups. His choices left behind a trail of complicated relationships, fractured bonds, and stories that still spark debate today. Take Kimber Eastwood, for example. She's painted 2 very different pictures of her father, sometimes speaking of a strong bond, other times describing years of neglect and frustration. At one point, she even admitted to pleading for a closer relationship. Then there's Lori Murray, the daughter Eastwood never knew he had. Given up for adoption as a baby, Lori only discovered her famous father in the 1990s through a private investigator. While Eastwood welcomed her into his life, the big question remains, did he ever try to find her, or did he truly have no idea she existed? The pattern of secrecy didn't stop there. His 14-year affair with stuntwoman Roxanne Tunis, which began on the set of Rawhide, resulted in the birth of Kimber. Eastwood later claimed he didn't even know she was his at first. Meanwhile, another woman entered the picture, Sondra Locke. She and Eastwood began their fiery romance in 1972, while he was still with Maggie Johnson, and she was in a platonic marriage with her childhood friend. Their chemistry in the outlaw Josie Wales was undeniable, but behind closed doors their relationship was far from glamorous. Locke later alleged that Eastwood pressured her into having multiple abortions and even a tubal ligation against her wishes. What started as a passion turned into a toxic, controlling dynamic that lasted over a decade. When it ended, Locke didn't go quietly. She sued Eastwood for fraud and broken promises, turning their breakup into a legal battle for the ages. And while all of this was happening, Eastwood had already moved on. He began a secret relationship with flight attendant Jaslyn Reeves, which resulted in 2 more children, Scott and Catherine. But before anyone could blink, he was also romancing actress Frances Fisher. For her, it was love at first sight, even though Locke was still in the picture. Their whirlwind romance brought them a daughter, Francesca, but the weight of Eastwood's past and his hidden children with Reeves eventually led to their downfall. Then came Dina Ruiz. The news anchor caught Eastwood's eye in 1992, and for a while it seemed like he had finally settled down. They married in 1996 and welcomed their daughter, Morgan. But even this union wasn't meant to last. When Dina joined a reality show, the spotlight clashed with Eastwood's famously private nature. Things unraveled quickly. Dina sought comfort from an old friend, Scott Fisher, while Eastwood, in a twist fit for a soap opera, started dating Fisher's ex-wife, Erica Tomlinson Fisher. By 2013, their marriage was over. And yet, as one chapter ended, another began. In 2015, Eastwood found love once again, this time with hostess Christina Sandera. Unlike his past relationships, this one has been quiet and drama-free. The two keep a low profile and have even been spotted at events alongside Eastwood's exes and children, proof that, after decades of romantic chaos, he may have finally found peace. But knowing Eastwood's history, you have to wonder, is this really the final chapter? Clint Eastwood's health has been the subject of speculation in recent years, especially after he went more than 450 days without a public sighting. Fans and insiders alike began to worry. Had the Hollywood legend finally slowed down? His last appearance was in February 2022 at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am Golf Tournament, an event he rarely missed and one held near his Carmel home. When he skipped the 2023 tournament, even as his son Scott competed, whispers of concern only grew louder. But then Eastwood silenced the rumors with a rare public outing. Just last month he stepped out for Jane Goodall's conservation event in Carmel by the Sea, flashing a smile as he chatted with the famed primatologist. At 93 he looked healthy and relaxed, sporting longer hair, a full beard, and a signature laid-back outfit. If anyone expected a frail recluse, Eastwood proved them wrong. And he's not just making appearances, he's still making movies. Last November he was spotted on the Georgia set of Juror No. 2, his latest courtroom drama, fully engaged behind the camera as both director and producer. Even in his 90s, Eastwood remains hands-on, showing the same no-nonsense focus that built his career. If you've learned something new about Clint's life today, comment, "Wow." So what's his secret? A disciplined lifestyle. Eastwood has long maintained a low-fat, high-protein diet, staying mindful of his cholesterol, a lesson learned from his father, who passed away young from cardiovascular disease. That dedication to health has clearly influenced his family too. His son Scott often credits Clint as his fitness inspiration, revealing that his father taught him to lift weights as a teen and instilled the importance of nutrition over indulgence. Whether he's directing, staying fit, or supporting conservation efforts, one thing is clear: Clint Eastwood refuses to let age define him. So, is he slowing down? Not a chance. The man is still calling the shots both in Hollywood and in life. Thank you for sticking with me through this deep dive. If you enjoyed it, drop MVP in the comments to let me know you made it to the end.